Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the pulse of Huskers Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a mega show, not like what I do during the season when I interview a current player and give my preview and prediction to the upcoming show on Saturday, but this is a two-part show. Okay, the first part of this show, now I'm going to give you a heads up before the second part of this show, because I'm going to give a health update on myself, because I've been asked a ton lately. It's very random, very much appreciated. But I thought I would just, since people keep asking me over the past 2 weeks more frequently than has happened in quite a while, figured I'd just give an update. That's going to be part two. I know not everybody's interested in that. People come here to talk not just Husker football, but Nebraska sports. But I'll give you a heads up before I do that. For those who are more interested in the sports football part of this, that's cool, no problem. But part one is the top three, potentially, most eye-catching things to watch for at Nebraska's spring game on Saturday, and I got a bonus one for you as well. Now, real quick, the spring game is, admittedly, the most overanalyzed practice of the year. Now, I'll be honest with you. My first spring game going into my redshirt freshman season, okay, I had a great spring. I went against Richie Incognito every day in practice, and people are like, when did you know you could play at a high level? When I could hold my own versus that guy. And I held my own. He's a great player, and he was tough, and he was hard-nosed and everything. But I held my own, and that's when I knew I could play. The spring game rolls around. There's like 30,000, 40,000 people there. Like not as many as we get at spring games nowadays, and I played horrible. It was bad. Okay, in fact, I kind of got in the doghouse with Pelini, who was the D coordinator. Okay, Jamrog, who was the D-line coach, and Solich Smidge, who was the head coach. And I had to work my way back out in fall camp because I really struggled in that game. Okay, it was the first time being in that type of atmosphere for someone like myself, being a young player, trying to earn playing time. So while this is the most overanalyzed practice of the year, it absolutely has merit, especially for young guys who are being put in this situation for the first time. Okay, now if you're looking forward, like I am, to seeing who makes some plays, because I'll tell you what, my sophomore year, I had a great spring game. I had earned the starting job up to that point. I went out and I had 2 sacks in the first half of that spring game, and then the starters kind of chilled the second half, so to speak. And that's when I knew, I'm like, all right, I'm starting this fall. I mean, we got summer conditioning, fall camp, back when you could do 2-a-days, etc. But I'm starting this fall. So the transition from my first spring game to my second spring game was huge for me. So the spring games have always mattered to me. They are the most overanalyzed practice of the year, but for young players, they absolutely matter. The spring game was something I actually always looked forward to every year as a player, and I truly enjoyed. Okay, but if you're like me and you're looking forward to seeing potentially who steps up, who makes plays, who excites people, especially the young players, okay, just like I am in Nebraska's spring game on Saturday, smash that like button. And as always, okay, if you don't want to miss any content here on the Carriker Chronicles, you just want to support the channel, which we greatly appreciate. I want to say thank you for everyone who has supported the Carriker Chronicles. When we went on our own about 14 months ago, 2 Februaries ago, we don't exist still without you fine folks at home. So thank you very much. And if you so inclined, hit that subscribe button as well. All right, here are the top 3 potentially eye-catching things to watch for at the Huskers Spring Game on Saturday. And it's interesting because I'm going to talk about Texas for just a millisecond here, and I'm going to try to not throw up. Okay, but all over social media was Arch Manning's passes at the Texas Spring Game. I'll leave out the fact that the receivers were wide open and they really have bad DBs or they just have busted coverage. Arch Manning is going to be a great player. I think they were a little overexcited. In my humble opinion, an anti-Texas attitude. I'll readily admit that. But it got Texas fans all sorts of excited. And so for me, I'm looking for legit things, legit reasons to be excited. But here are some of the 3 potentially eye-catching things that could happen this Saturday spring game. And I'm going to start at number 3. Number 3 is the wide receivers. Our wide receiver play was not great last year. Pass protection was not great last year. The quarterback struggled a lot last year. It all was connected, though. It wasn't just on the quarterbacks. We have plenty of new faces in our wide receiver room this year. Matt Rule has called Jamal Banks a difference maker. And I've even said Isaiah Nair, depending on how he bounces back from his knee injury that he suffered at Texas, he potentially has the highest ceiling of any wide receiver this fall when you account for experience and talent. There's other very athletic wide receivers in that room. You got Jalen Lloyd, Jaden Doss, you got Malachi Coleman, all young guys. Alex Bullock will be a factor as well this year. And there's other guys outside of the 6 I just mentioned who could contribute, potentially make an impact, but contribute this fall in that wide receiver room. So regardless of who sits or plays in the spring game this Saturday, because some guys are going to play more than others, even if those guys are starters, et cetera, that's fine. Regardless of who sits or plays this Saturday during the spring game, our wide receivers had such a tough year last year. We need badly, and I'm curious to see who it is that steps up for Nebraska out of our new faces and even some of our returning players. Okay, because they are very athletic at the wide receiver. I'm also wide receiver spot this year, and I'm also curious to see how they do versus probably who are going to be our two starting DBs, at least if we had a real game this Saturday, Tommy Hill and Bly Hill. Tommy, one of the most athletic guys on the entire team. Top 5, top 3 potentially. Bly Hill, one of the most underestimated new faces in the entire transfer portal class, recruiting class. He's a 6'3" corner who's impressed all spring. So I'm curious to see how they do versus these wide receivers. Number 2, the one-on-one matchups. Not just wide receiver versus DBs, but defensively and offensively, the schemes are going to be very basic, very blasé, which is okay. We don't want to show anything. I support that. But it comes down, when you're not blitzing and you're not being fancy, it comes down to one-on-one matchups, especially along the offensive and defensive lines. I'm curious about the one-on-one matchups and the offensive and defensive lines. The offensive line is 7 guys who started games in their career, 152 total starts in their career, versus the defensive line, which is projected to be the strength of the entire team. Who's going to win those one-on-one matchups? When I was at the Senior Bowl, the scouts all gathered around the one-on-one pass rush drill. When we had scouts showing up my junior and senior year to evaluate players and teammates that were on my team for potential NFL draft stock, it was the one-on-one matchups, especially the pass pro, one-on-one matchups, O-line, D-line. That's what I'm excited to see. How does our O-line do versus our D-line? How good can our D-line really be? Those one-on-one matchups up front, especially pass blocking. And the guys who can win one-on-one matchups, they will get drafted higher, and they will raise their draft stock faster. There's no faster way to raise your draft stock than winning a one-on-one matchup as an offensive, defensive lineman in pass protection, whether it's 11-on-11 or one-on-one in a drill, or if it turns into one-on-one in an 11-on-11 scrimmage like it will Saturday. All right, number 1, what else could it be? The quarterbacks. Of course it's the quarterbacks. What else could it be? All right, who stands out? Dylan Raiola. How good does he look? Does he have any wow moments? But what matters to me more than anything else, can he do the basic, simple little things that we struggled to do last year and just run the offense? That's what I want to know out of Dylan. Number 2, Daniel Kalen. How close is he to Dylan? Is there separation? If there is, how much is it? How little is it? Is there any at all? I'm going to compare those two exactly to each other for obvious reasons, because their skill sets are similar. They're battling for the starting job. Don't overlook Danny Dimes, Heinrich Haarberg. Matt Rule has said that his throwing is significantly improved over last year. And I've said it a million times. When I watched him as a true freshman, nobody got more reps in that practice outside of Adrian Martinez. Nobody got more reps in that practice when he was a true freshman, the day that I really paid attention to him, than him. And that includes other guys who were in that quarterback room who ended up starting for us before Heinrich ever did. Okay, they were starting while Heinrich wasn't even in the quarterback room for an entire season, which I think hurt his development a ton. Not even getting reps at all, not watching film, not doing any of that. He wasn't even in the quarterback room for an entire year. That set him back, which is probably why he digressed so much in his throwing, which really isn't even his fault. My point is, the kid can throw. If he's worked on his throwing motion and he's actually been given a chance to improve, I believe Matt Rule that he is throwing better, but I'm also curious to see what he does with his feet. I'm curious. He's the one quarterback who is known for making plays with his feet. All right, one honorable mention spot, linebacker. All right, Syracuse transfer Stephon Thompson was expected to be the starter when he transferred here. And he still could potentially be one of the top 5 new impact players, like I mentioned in the previous show I just did, but he's not there yet. He came in a bit overweight. He's got to get there. I want to see how he looks Saturday. Can he get there and be the starter by fall? If not, keep your eye out for freshman linebacker. You've heard his name probably a million times in other places, Vincent Shavers. 220 pounds, quick, fast, athletic. This is the most athletic group of young linebackers we've had here at the University of Nebraska in quite a while. And I'm excited to see how they can play, especially Vincent Shavers, a guy who was committed to Miami. They already had a bunch of linebackers, so we got him. Thank you very much. Could a freshman start at linebacker? We might have a true freshman start at quarterback, so why not linebacker if it fits? All right, real quick, I want to give a shout out to DPS Concrete Construction. This show is brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction, as you know. They're your local concrete experts. Check them out at dpsconstruction.net. Now, this is that part where I'm going to give a little bit of a health update. So about 18 months ago, about a year and a half ago, my heart went crazy. It was just boom, 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 beating like a million miles an hour and like a complete idiot with a football player's mentality in life, which doesn't always make sense. I ignored it for 3 months. just going crazy at night, during the day, working out, whatever, just going crazy all the time. I have a speaking gig in Nebraska, and I'm driving home about 1, 2 in the morning. I call my parents, and I finally tell somebody else. And my mom's a nurse of 44 years. My parents were not very happy with me. You need to go talk and see a frickin' doctor. So of course I do. They say I have AFib. And my heart has been going crazy for so long. I use the word crazy, that's just how it felt. Basically, my ejection fraction, which was supposed to be, the typical ejection fraction is 55 to 60%. It was down to barely around 20%. Basically, I was in heart failure. They said, you're at high risk for blood clots, for a stroke, and you're technically in heart failure. But that's when they did what's called a cardioversion. They knock you out. Boom, they literally shock your heart back into normal rhythm. The first time they did it didn't work. It wouldn't go through all this muscle, what used to be muscle. So they had to do it again. I had gigantic burns on my chest from them doing it again. They had to put a weighted sandbag on my chest and press down as hard as they could. And then the second time it worked. So over the past 18 months, I haven't said much about this. For whatever reason, the past 2 weeks, I've had, oh my God, like 10, 15, 20 people ask me about a health update in my heart. And I'm just like, man, first of all, thank you. I appreciate it. It's so random, but I do appreciate it. But here's the health update. I've seen the cardiologist twice, actually 3 times since, checkups, updates. I got an Apple Watch so I can do an EKG, keep track of my pulse. My heart still goes fast. So they had me wear like a heart monitor thing for I was supposed to wear it for a week, but my skin broke out, long story short. And so for 4 days, then I had to take it off because of my skin getting mad. Basically, my heart goes fast sometimes. It'll go up to 200 beats a minute, but it's not for very long. And the doctor said it's abnormal, but it's not abnormally concerning. So you just need to monitor it. I need to go in and see him every 6 months to 9 months or whatever, and just stay on top of it. So my heart isn't quite normal, kind of fitting for me, but it's not concerning. I just need to be smart and stay on top of it. I want to thank you fine folks who have asked me how I'm doing, and there's a quick update. Here are my questions for you fine folks. Let me know your answer in the comments below. Number 1, what's the biggest thing you're watching for in the spring game this Saturday? Number 2, which quarterback do you predict will stand out the most during the spring game? And number 3, who will be the biggest surprise player for the Huskers on Saturday during the spring game? Check out CarrikerChronicles.com. It's where all your Husker sports hopes and dreams will come true. Go Big Red, and always remember to throw the ball.